The importance of Leo Tolstoy's literature, as presented by GenZ Education. Leo Tolstoy was a Russian author who is mainly remembered for his works War and Peace and Anna Karenina, which have been regarded as the finest fiction novels. Tolstoy has written plays, lectures, and poems in addition to creating classics. He has clear political opinions, especially the seemingly imminent declaration of war by regimes forced him to take his political views into account in his works. Leo Tolstoy was not a communist. Tolstoy was an anarchist, despite criticizing capitalism. Something important to note on his literature style was his utilization of the realist philosophy. The realist philosophy in literature insists on the objective portrayal of nature and society. It implies no goblins, no spirits, supernatural actions, and most importantly, no fantasy. Realism was fresh and revolutionary, and it seemed to stick with us forever. With the exception of the Romantic era, it refuses to glorify individuals and romantic interactions. Tolstoy showed us how our thoughts constantly shift on any given topic, often tormenting us with their inconstancy. It is the rituals and concerns of daily lives that shape much of our lives. Tolstoy renders the minutiae in such a way that Anna Karenina gives much of life does, long periods of grinding routine with a few shocking moments that define us. His novel, Anna Karenina, seems glorious yet gritty at the same time, as Tolstoy incorporates the narrative of the third person so skillfully that he is the voice of the incidents, but can still choose any character state of mind. His technique applies more insight and comprehension of the characters, not only to see their charm, but to get under their skin. But there are also difficulties. Explicitly, Anna Karenina shines considering its psychological and social critique. It reveals how, under completely believable, if not banal, situations, ordinary reasoning contributes to something that is typically incomprehensible to individuals. That even its own lives seems inscrutable and unthinkable. The book is quite painful in that way that it reveals the brutality of humans. Anna Karenina allows everyone to ruminate on several issues, such as the degree to which one can be rational in seeking one's own fulfillment and questioning the nature of love. In War and Peace, there is so much honesty and complexity that it's almost a deep aha moment with oneself. Through individual characters, humans are shown to be enemies of themselves. The drive to look for fun and challenging the future is present. During the time leading up to Napoleon's conquest, War and Peace gives one a glimpse into humankind and to the reality of life for several classes of society in Russia in the early 1800s. A detailed representation of the society is proposed by Tolstoy in War and Peace. Tolstoy also carefully covers the early 19th century, Napoleon's overtake, contemporary political analysis, and countless quirks of Russian society with his forces of speech, but also brings to life some of the most complex characters to be found in the world of art. It is important to remember that Tolstoy did not believe in the philosophical tradition. The idea of good art, for example, should help one feel less absolutist and spiteful, and should be a complement to faith, which profoundly invested in him. Tolstoy had a huge rationalist side, which in turn appeared to become the most important side of him. Without holding it in view, none of his work can be enjoyed. Our own thoughts regarding the characters are an important part of his novels. The hatred of certain characters was a specific feature of his literary works. Readers tend to sympathize with the eponymous character from Anna Karenina before a final, defining moment of compassion from her usually cold husband, which leads readers to shift alliances. This holds the lack of his realism. What is art? One of Tolstoy's most significant and neglected novels, in which he argues that art is an adventure. Via great works of art, Tolstoy tells us that more compassionate feelings, which are less appropriate for the sake of humanity, are driven out naturally and displaced by gentler sentiments that suit each individual better, serving to lower our feelings. He proclaimed that what makes art art is our journey of feeling. Books needed to be more than just fun for Tolstoy. He made compassion and maturity a primary concern. The best way to do this was to get into other people's worlds. In What is Art, Tolstoy wrote about other writers as well as his own writings. Tolstoy also analyzed theories created from the analysis of popular works and believed them to be counterintuitive, as individual tastes and perspectives differ vastly. He also categorized his own works as being bad art, with the exception of his short stories, God Sees the Truth and Prisoner of the Caucasus. Leo Tolstoy tried to inform the common people on well-being and the ethics of emotions. In a culture in which contemporary art is viewed as a fan base by a cult, Leo's work is in What is Art and War and Peace gives an insight into morality. The standard description of art by Tolstoy and his conception of aesthetics by implication is disturbing in the following ways. Art is inevitably paternalistic. Devolving is something solely for enjoyment, because art is a process of infection. Any free distribution of art in the wild may be harmful to humanity, so to speak. For the sake of free play of creativity, there is no art accommodation for imagination. Realism, especially that in books of Leo Tolstoy, makes it deeply clear that realism allows people to doubt our environment, our civilization, and our morality. These kinds of books, which enrich the mind with ideas, also transform who one is at the core. It's what Tolstoy strove for, and to this day, this quality in his work is what makes him so famous. His art made his viewers doubt their own morals and yet instilled the healing feeling that he worked to create. In War and Peace, for instance, Tolstoy works to carry on a war forever. He would not exclude someone who does not associate closely into the fundamental realities of history, truth, and casualty. One might postulate, who can even resonate with a book about war to begin with? Though, through his incredible utilization of alliteration and philosophy, Tolstoy managed to write books that are relatable to any living human being, regardless of what region of the world one may live in or who they may interact with. They will be able to formulate a personal connection with many of Tolstoy's works. Anna Karenina never becomes too old. The book and its message is everlasting. Its defining idea is the desire for a life of love akin to heaven. From the character flaws to the seeking of the unattainable, the book is both relatable and eye-opening. It is also unfortunate and rather upsetting. But through selective characters, Tolstoy reveals that there is a deeper passion and sensuality emerging from a desire that matures beyond the passion of youth, that contributes in many respects to our culture today. The work of Tolstoy focuses on finding one's own self inside the character. Young readers are automatically linked to Pierre from War and Peace, a young opinionated idealist. The timeless tropes of people and the secret narcissistic agendas behind their actions, the use of clever double entendres, the internal reflection of all classes of individuals, and more are what make his work relevant even today. Tolstoy's work remains timeless and a source of deep reflection and perspective for many around the world. Visit genzeducation.org to discover Gen Z Education and the work we do to further educational equity through articles, programs, and other resources.